bill that doesn't necessarily pass. Very few have I voted for in my 11 years. I think that any time that you can keep things on the local level is great. I mean, most folks in the 12 years or 11 years I was in the legislature had no idea what the legislature did. But they knew what the county did and they knew what the city did or didn't do when time came to a pass. Anything that we can do closer to the people is the best way, and that's why I work so hard as an assemblywoman to keep things locally. So I agree that we need to keep things locally. Unfortunately, we are bound by Congress on what they allow us to do. I mean, you can look at legislation. The state trumps the county, the federal government trumps the county, so the state trumps the county, and then the federal government trumps the state. So a lot of times we don't get a say in the issue, and that really is a question for...
But there is legislation in Congress, and local voices are important. And when you have something like Gold Butte, when there has been legislation introduced on making it a national conservation area, which you say you're not aware of the issue or familiar with the issue, but you're not taking a stand on it. And we just had Basin and Range being made a national monument. Local voices on this issue are important. And since you are now representing this area, you have or have no position on it.
That's correct. I'm not going to tell you something that you want to hear. Because first and foremost, I always worry about Nevada first. Nevada is my first and foremost priority, as I've done over the many years. I agreed to go and get up to speed on that issue in particular, but you have to understand, at least from my perspective, I don't even read the paper in the morning. I was working a full-time job, 60 hours a week, being the minority leader of 17 folks, plus working with the other side to get good things done for the state level. So I'm not going to apologize for not having the answer that you think I should have, but I'm willing to go out and get the answer so that I can make an educated answer. So I hope that you'll at least give me that opportunity. I think that in 10 days, I've jumped in with my feet first. I've had a Ruse and More issue. I had medical marijuana. I had more cops, all within 2 days, not counting the hundreds of emails of folks that wanted to know where their project started or finished and what I was going to do to represent them. So I would hope, I'm asking, and if it's not something that's doable, then I'm sorry, but I'm willing to come back with educated decisions. You know, I don't allow my kids to give me an answer just for the sake of giving me an answer, because it's make me a lot madder in the long run if it's not the right answer or if it's not an educated answer. So I would hope that you would at least give me an opportunity, and so yes, Mr. Daly.
I appreciate your honesty there. That is one of the few times I've heard an elected representative just kind of come right out, because public land issue is a very complex issue, and I want you to know that was a courageous answer. What I do want to do is shift a little bit and get away from public land, because it gets way involved and way technical. And I did want to, you're familiar as being speaker you know, in the House about AB 394, the district breakup bill. What, even though it's a state issue and not a county, your reach is quite extensive, you know, into that realm, and I appreciate that, and I think it's very fortunate that we have that, have access to you for that. I would like to hear, because there's at various levels of the community, there's lots of churning about, okay, what are we going to do about this bill? Because it's going to happen whether we like it or not, and we have to have a say in it, or we want a say in it. I haven't heard much printed or much talked about in the press. It's just kind of all below the surface. Is there anything you can bring to light about what your feelings are, what the intent is, what can we expect out of that, what's legitimate to ask for, and how do we go about affecting that, because education is a big deal? in this community.
So what I'll tell you is I am a proud product of CCSD. I went to Clark County School District. I went to Vegas Verdes, Brindley Junior High, and Western High School. Back in the day when you had to ride the bus for an hour to get there. What I will tell you is the truth of the matter. It was a freshman legislator who had brought this bill in the past. They've come before the legislature. I bet I've seen it 4 times while I was there. And the reason that it could never go forward was because there's a real equity issue on how that is determined. Because what could happen is most of us in Commission District B would not benefit from that if it wasn't well thought out, right? And why should our kids, as you said, be less important than the kids that are in the city? So we worked, and I took it on the chin from many of my counterparts on the Senate side, worked till 4 o'clock in the morning to come up with something that was reasonable. What the legislation says, so there truly has to be a real discussion about this issue. Does it make sense or does it not make sense? What the legislation does not say is that they don't have to do anything if they decide that it's not enough time or if they decide that maybe it doesn't make sense. So they have the ability to do nothing. They have the ability to do something, and that is farther than we've gotten in a little over 20 years. What I will tell you, it's super important, and I owe you the numbers. They're working on them for me now of what it cost. I did speak with even Senator Gokachia about the issue, and we think Humboldt County is a better county for you guys to compare yourself to as opposed to White Pine, because they're a little more stable. And you guys have the same kids have been here for a long time in White Pine County. They tend to go up and down of whether there's the same kids. But what I will tell you is your voice is very important. We have to address, people have to know, and we learn this in the legislature often, that rural schools are way more expensive to fund, because Douglas County is a prime example. It's $17,000 per student, as opposed to Clark County, a kid in my district is $5,600, because you have to provide longer transportation, you have to provide the same school setting for less kids. But that doesn't mean any of that conversation should happen. At least my thing, and look, I'm on the wrong side of the school district on this, is I think that if you're going to look at it, then talk about breaking it up by grade level, right? That way every kindergarten through 5th grade has the same everything. Every middle school kid has the same thing, because otherwise we have haves and have-nots. This way every elementary school, and this is where me and my friend Chris agree to disagree, but I mean, let's look at something. Let's talk about something different. But I will remind you that any time that we put mandates on them, and the federal government puts mandates on them, that we, do these mandates for an extra $1 million, there's a cost that comes with it. Now you got to now you got to have this report. Now you got to have that report. That's a person that it takes to do that. So I think that, in my mind, we have a great superintendent, someone who's actually homegrown, somebody who's been through the process. But it's a lot for him to do. I couldn't possibly be at 350 schools in a year's time, let alone think about it. That's 5 a week at the very least. So what I will tell you that please make your voice heard. And I just want to close with one more thing. I'll always be honest, whether it's the right answer or the wrong answer. But I'm fair, and I'm willing to do whatever work it is, but I will never just give you an answer for the sake of giving you an answer, because it's not who I am. It wouldn't fly at my house, trust me. So I'm much about having the facts so that I can justify why I feel one way or another. So I hope that's okay. If it's not, I apologize in advance, but that's really just who I am, and I really want to do what's best for you out here, and I want to help you grow, and I want to do things a little bit different, right? The press was asking me about the former commissioner today. Well, here's the thing. I just have a little bit different style. I'm successful in my style for my constituents, and I want to bring that to you, because what I will tell you is I work very well with staff on many levels, because I think that they have a hard job putting up with a bunch of elected officials who everybody wants something. But I can tell you, if you work with staff, typically they can help you get to where you want to get to. And in the legislature, you know, they have 63 people with 900 different directions, and this person wants this, and this person wants that. Well, I've always learned that if you work with staff and that if you bring them out here, today you'll see Alex has been out here more in the last 2 weeks than ever before. Our fire chief, our zoning, I will always bring them out to you so that they can understand what your issues are, rather than making you go all the way into town or go to an advisory meeting, so that you can be comfortable in your own area. So I hope that answers questions. I'm a big believer in working with folks and bringing people together, but I will tell you this, I'm not a wallflower either. I have been known to fight folks in a very rough way, but you know what, I can do that if I have the facts. I can win on facts, and that's just who I am and who I want to be. So if you guys don't have any other questions, go ahead.